Welcome back to another edition of Global Book Network, the show where we sit down with authors and ask them not only the why of their writing projects, but the how as well. Please welcome Stacy Phillippe, the author of Little Line, Big Line. On today's episode, we're talking about what it means to be a product of your environment and experience to make a fantastic memoir. How's it going today?
Really good. I am making more memories for another memoir.
Yeah, well, that was actually going to be my last question, but start there
Oh,
first. Like,
go ahead.
memoirs are no, that's totally fine. Memoirs are fun because you get to do a slice of your life, and I understand we'll get to the reason why you wrote this one. But like, how do you decide whether that you're going to do a second or third? It must be very addicting, huh?
Yes, it is. It's cathartic while writing it. And so obviously I went back to journals that I had written and it's very cathartic, but also when you reread it after it's being edited. So I would, every third chapter, every three chapters were edited and I would read it and I would cry because I'm like, who is this person? I
Yeah.
don't know this person anymore. So it's taken me through such a journey. I went through the journey before. Now I'm going through another journey, which is reliving it in a different way, though. Yeah. So that's one of the things that in writing it was such a great experience to do that, and then to decide, do I want to make another book? And there is at the end of the book, if you read it, it's a cliffhanger because it is going to possibly lead into another one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why it was kind of interesting. But let's talk about the fact you do journal as well. I know that some authors do and some authors don't. Talk to me about when you decided to journal. Was it a moment in time that made you triggered to do that, or was always someone that expressed themselves with the written word?
No, I really never know how to express myself because you know, I grew up as a preacher's daughter, and you just are supposed to look good, act good, and not don't say anything, and don't you're not really allowed to be authentic. And so, in doing that, as I got older, I wanted to learn how to express myself. So when I got into my third marriage is when I started, well, right before my third marriage, when I started journaling. And it was a way for me to write it down because if I wrote it down, it became more real to me. And then I could actually feel like it's okay. Like I can share this, I can talk about this, I can have those feelings. They're not wrong feelings.
Mhm.
And but I never journaled to write a book. I journaled just for my own self.
Yeah, but it becomes like the best reference, I guess, when things are coming together. So let's talk about it. Little Lion, Big Lion, a very difficult time of your life that you decided to write down. And I know it's kind of a hard question, but like, so when was the moment you decided to write it? But there must have been a time where you wanted to probably battle with maybe keeping what happened inside and sharing it. What was the moment when you decided to say, you know what, other people need to learn from this story?
It was in um, it was in December of 2023, and December 17th, I had to put my dog that I'd had down for 15 years. She was 15 years old. Had to put her down, and I was sitting there holding her right before they were actually giving her the shot for her to go ahead and pass. And one of my dearest girlfriends was sitting there with me, and she was like, "You really need to write a book about you and Saki," because I had started sharing my experiences with my girlfriends, which that's what's so awesome about having girlfriends is you can share these experiences with them. And she said, all the things that you've been through with Saki, and you owe it to Saki, even if you don't publish it, you owe it to her. And so I thought, oh, I can do this. Yeah. I got C's in English. So writing a book sounded very daunting because I'm like, and I'm a perfectionist. So I'm like, how am I going to write a book? I'm not very good with, punctuation and da da da. But obviously that's what editors are for. But it
Right.
really inspired me to, when I looked at her and I realized what she had helped me go through in my life and her faithfulness to me, God's faithfulness to me, it all kind of just came to a realization that this was something that I really needed to do one way or another, published or not.
Talk to me about Saki a bit because it does feel like it was a companion, but of a very distinct personality, and it came during a difficult time. What was your relationship like during her entire life?
We were very close. She would definitely went everywhere with me. She was 5 pounds. So I put her in my purse and took her to movies with me, church with me. She's been to France with me. She's been everywhere. And she was just like my constant companion. And when I got her, and this is in the book, she was given to me by the Italian boyfriend that is talked about in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as a gift of, obviously, it's a gift for being abusive. And so, in this gift, he gave me Saki, and we went together to go pick her up. And so, Saki started out to be something that was a gift by someone who became very abusive in that situation. And so it's like Saki does have a point of view in the book because she was with me through all those times of the abuse. And then even beyond that, even after that relationship ended and went into other relationships. Saki was my big lion. She was my protector.
Forgive me for this next question. Because of the context of how you received Saki, was there any original resentment of having a companion because of where it came from, or was that nothing that crossed your mind?
No, not at all. I felt like, just like when I think when there's something in our lives, like God can make something bad into good. Saki was the good out of all that bad.
Mm-hmm.
She was there for a reason in my life. And so there was, no resentment with her or the relationship that she even had
Yeah.
with my ex-boyfriend.
As human beings, we kind of want the same things universally. We want to be safe, want to be a good shelter, maybe being able to live free. But talking about the situation you had with Theo in the book, it's obviously things when start out, they don't start out bad, but they did deteriorate. What was like the pretense of you guys came together? How'd you cross paths in life?
We got together. I went to Italy for 3 months with my daughter. And the last 5 days that we were there, we went into this little pizza place late at night. And Theo was sitting there with another Italian gentleman. And there was just the four of us in the restaurant. And he was tasting wine. He comes over, introduces himself. And we started, went out to dinner. So the relationship kind of started then, thinking that it would end when I went back to the States. I went to Paris with my daughter for a couple of days, and so didn't see Theo after that. And then when we got back into town and back into Tuscany before we left to come back to Dallas, we went to dinner one more night, and I thought, okay, this is it. I'm not going to see him again.
Mm-hmm.
He did tell me he had an office in Raleigh, North Carolina. So, like 2 weeks later, I get a call, and he's back in the States. And this is when he's like, I'm going to San Diego. I'm stopping in Dallas. I would love to have lunch with you. And I'm like, oh, that would be great, because I was an empty nester now. I didn't have any dogs after I'd had 5 dogs at one time. My kids were gone. I sold my house in Indianapolis, living in my condo in Dallas, and I was just like, oh, this is great. I'd love to have lunch with him and get to know him more. And then he talked me into going to San Diego with him, and it just kind of went from there. It starts out with these little like charming things, obviously that someone like that does, and it pulls you in such a slow but steady, but then becomes more intense way.
Yeah. Slow and steady is something I've heard with individuals in similar situations. But was there a particular moment when you said something is amiss? Like, this is not what I had in mind?
Yes, there's a part of the book that's called Charlotte, and I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets me a ticket to go to Charlotte, North Carolina after some other things have happened, but I've kind of made excuses for him. And in Charlotte, he broke out into a rage and started throwing my suitcases everywhere, throwing, all my cosmetics everywhere. And we were in a nice hotel at the Ritz-Carlton. And then I was just like, I've got to get out of here. Like, this is not normal. So I ran over, got to the house phone, got to it before he did, and called downstairs to the front desk and had them like immediately give me a room and come up and pick my luggage up. So that
Yeah.
was the first time I was really like, but but then again, it's like, and I talk about it in some of at the beginning of the book and in the forward of the book about how sometimes we mistake chaos for passion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was doing. The
Yeah.
chaos seemed like passion to me, and I'm like, I mean, who does not want to be adored and have, I love the passion he had for me. That was amazing. Here's this Italian guy, has all this passion, da da da. Certainly, it's he just loves me so much, and I mistaked that kind of chaos for actually passion.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of us in situations that, for lack of a better word, are abusive or at least manipulative, there is a part of like there's a stage where things happened and we go, this wouldn't fly if it was a stranger, but this person loves me. There's no way that they meant it. Maybe it was a bad day. Maybe they just had something on their mind. And I guess that part can really damage your own psyche. Like what was keeping you from going to the brink? What kept you grounded during these times?
My relationship with God, as I said, I grew up as a preacher's daughter, and that was obviously embedded in me. However, there was part of that too that I felt it was legalistic, it was judgmental. I feel like I was never good enough. I was felt, there were all those things that I think I brought into a relationship, saying, "Oh, here, this person, thinks I'm wonderful just as I am," and and what ends up happening is you start to dig deep. Every once in a while you dig deep and you're like, okay, I'm better than this. I don't deserve this. I need to get out of this. And I found that in my relationship with God. I
Hmm.
also found that like God uses all his creations for us, even a little tiny 5-pound dog. And my faith in God was there, my hope that there was always, something good, something better that was going to come out of this. But giving me Saki too also gave me that relationship that I had right there with me right then that I could count on.
Yeah. How was the best way to spend time with Saki? Just curious.
As we go walking in the mornings, we would hang out outside on the balcony, and I would read, and we would go to restaurants. And and this restaurant's actually in the book, and I still go there to this day. There's a restaurant called Toulouse, and it's this little French bistro restaurant. And I take her to lunch with me, and everyone knew her in there. And we'd sit there and watch the people walk by on a trail. We have a walking trail called the Katy Trail, and so we'd sit there and watch people together. And I'd take her to the mall, and we would do all kinds of. So, and she traveled with me everywhere too. So, and like I said, she went to the movies, and so we just spent a lot of time hanging out, and people loved her. She was a big personality.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. Like it's almost like being a star of the show. Like which one's the star? Which one's the sidekick?
She was kind of the star of the book.
Right. So talk to me about actually putting this book together. You had your memories, you have your journals, you have the timeline laid out.
Mhm.
Talk to me about the actual writing process. What you decided to keep or to really delve deep in, which things you decided to minimize a bit. That must have been a process within the process.
It is a process within the process. And I started writing, and then I started thinking, okay, wait a minute. So I went back and did the timeline, and that helped me so much to really focus on. So you'll notice in the book, like there's, Road to Raleigh, obviously Raleigh, North Carolina, Wrightsville Beach. So the titles are the different timelines. And within that, I really had to stop and think, okay, what what stood out to me the most? Like, what was the most thing that gave me such insight into myself? Like, what is wrong with me? Why am I doing this? This isn't right. And then also then flipping it and going the other direction because he would do something nice, or I would give him, excuses and rationalize his behavior. And then those times too, I felt those were the two things that I had to focus in on, not the little whatever. And then we went and, went to the candy store and da 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 da. It was more like, this is what when I think about Wrightsville Beach, these are the memories I have. This is what happened. And it is, you do have to kind of like, at first I felt like, oh, am I jumping from here to there? But it's not, it's not jumping from here to there. It's like, what really spoke to me in when I look back and I see what happened in my life, and whatever that is would speak to somebody else too.
Yeah. And that process was that over a period of weeks, months, years to put this
Took
together?
me 19 years, or 19 years, 19 months to
Oh.
write the book. And it's my story. So I was just like, I would start writing it, and then I had to stop. I'm a very outgoing person, and I like a lot of people, and I didn't realize that writing was so isolating.
Hmm.
Really, like, I was like, oh, I mean, I like my place, and I think it's really pretty, but I don't want to stay here for hours on end, writing. So I would take my computer and I'd walk to the local, there's a great mall around here called Highland Park Village. And I would go into this old social club and I'd write up there. And I would write at Toulouse, our restaurant, and I would write at certain places that would just kind of inspire me and take me into where, I needed to go so that I could actually not just, because if I did it at home, I would have lost my focus. I
Right.
better at least having people walk by.
Yeah.
And that's what helped me to really narrow it down and to not drag it out. But then there were some times when I would write like a paragraph and then I'd go for 3 or 4 days and not write anything.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I consider myself more of a fiction writer. But my last book was a memoir because I was just frustrated with my sales of my fiction books. Side story. And there was a time because it was my first time writing in that genre, and I had all the ideas up the wazoo. But there was a time going, you know what? No one's gonna read this. Like, who cares? I mean, I'm just one dude, and I gotta ask you, like, going through this and reliving it. There must have been times where you're just like, what am I doing? Like, why should I even continue? What made you continue? What pushed you over the line?
Well, I first started with, there's a lady, I live in a high rise, and there's a lady in my building that I have to give her credit for. Her name's Pat. And she's been a English teacher. But so she's like, well, why don't, we meet every Tuesday and Thursday and I'll kind of like keep you accountable for this. So she was my accountability partner. And also she said, I can kind of edit it a little bit. And so, because I was like, when am I going to publish it? I have no idea through the whole process of how to publish or what to do. We're just like, I'm going to write. And so she really helped me in that time to just stick with it and help me to be accountable. And then when I was telling her the stories, she was like, wait, what? And I would tell her these stories because she was helping me with a timeline too. So, and I would tell her these stories. She's like, oh my God. So there were a few things that she deep dived into. One of them was where Thomas lived. And in the book, I talk about where he took me in Raleigh, where he lived, and I knew it wasn't his house. And so she finds out, she gets on, I don't know if I'm supposed to mention this, but she gets on Truth Finder and she finds out where the house was because I could recognize it. And she looked up Theo's name, which Theo is not his real name. So she looked up Theo's name and realized, she goes and zeroed in through Google Maps. And she goes, is that the house? I'm like, yes, it is. Well, he had that was really someone else's house that he was supposedly seeing at the time and ends up marrying her right after.
Wow.
And she calls her on the phone, calls this phone number, gets a hold of her because she's in this kind of pharmaceutical sales type thing. And so she always answers the phone. She answered the phone. And my friend Pat said, I'm Pat from Dallas, da, 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 da. I am helping or, assisting Stacy or assisting someone in writing a book. And she immediately mentioned my name. She had known about me. So there are all these like weird things that would happen. And she's like, Stacy, you have to write this book. Like, this is not normal behavior.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, here we go.
Kind of an odd question to ask. I admit this, but how are you on the other side of this? Are you on the other side of this? Like, how do you like balance like the fallout from the book and having it done and the next chapter of your life? Like, how would you describe where you are right now?
I kind of miss, as much as I was like the writing of it got daunting for me, especially then when I, got a real editor and then I was accountable more often. And, it was daunting. And then when it finally was finished, and then, it's each step they were taking me, okay, now how are we going to do this? And this is what's going to happen. And da-da-da with the book. And I'm like, oh, this is like amazing. This is surreal. And now it's kind of like, I'm addicted to it. I want to share my story, and everyone has a story. And I do believe that. Maybe some are more interesting than others. I mean, I have a jacket that I bought in Mexico City and it says, it's literally written on the back, bad decisions make better stories. And so, and it's like, I've made a lot of bad decisions and I admit it. So it's like, now that I'm on this side of it, it's also like, I've learned so much, but I've learned also that I want to continue to share. I want to continue in whatever way that is, whether it's writing, whatever it's speaking, or whatever it is. I want to continue to take it to another level. But I feel really good about it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I always say it hurts so good, you know, and like it's like a deep tissue massage. You're like saying, I can't, but when it's done, you're like, hey, I can go for that next week.
Yeah,
It
so
just
bad.
keeps you, it keeps you great.
This is so bad. I could do that again and again and again.
Right. The next thing you know, you got like 30 bucks in your back
Yeah,
pocket.
exactly.
But speaking of that, we actually teased that at the beginning of this talk. But if there's any room for a second or third memoir, what would that be? What would that look like? What's the process so far on those?
I kind of left, like I said, a cliffhanger. So there is a cliffhanger to be like, wait, what happened to Patrick? Because then there's this other individual that comes into play, and then there's also some issues that I realized with my father. So those could come into play. So I'm looking at either one of those, whether I put those two situations together and continue a memoir, or if I just do Patrick or I just do my father. Um, Also, in some of my experiences during this, I have, I date. I'm not married or dating anyone particular, and I came up with this idea for a book called The 36-Hour Boyfriend, and it's so good and it's so funny. So it'd be a funny one. So those are like the three options I'm playing with, and if you have any insight and opinions on that, please do let me know if you need to later on. But
Okay, yeah. Well, here's an insight, and I'm not even sure it's going to make the cut of this call when it's done. But I've noticed that too. I travel because I cover sports, and in my other careers, I cover sports from a comedic standpoint. And you go into hotel lobbies, and there's like a whole like sub culture of executives who live in that town that pretend to be traveling to their own town to pick up other travelers. I'm like, it's so crazy.
yeah, that's kind of what happened to me. It's an interesting story. I'll
Yeah.
either put it in a book or I'll tell you about it later.
Yeah, please do. I mean, I would love to read more about that because when I learned, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm living life wrong.
I said, I'm going to write a book about you. And it's going to be called 36-Hour Boyfriend, but I will change your name.
Right, right.
I'd love to have a book written by me about me. And I'm like, of course you would.
Yeah, why not? But in all honesty, Little Lion, Big Lion's available now. If someone wanted to check it out or learn more about you and the many lives that you live, how do they go about doing that?
Well, we do have a website, littlelionbiglionbook.com. And you can go through the website, but we're also on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. And through that, I have my own personal Instagram, but the website will lead you to my Instagram and my Facebook, or my Facebook and Instagram can lead you to the website. But yes, littlelionbiglionbook.com.
Absolutely. I love this chat. This is so much. I won't say fun because that sounds like that's like I like, but it's really cool and interesting to see that you got so many challenges, and not only did you overcome those, you found a way to really just share an honest and open opinion how other people can go through their own problems can learn from. So I respect the heck out of that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, it's like it's been a journey, but it's a journey that I feel like is going to take me into a whole nother area of my life, which that's what journeys are for, right? See what the next.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love talking, as you can well see. So this is fun for me too.
Well, I feel like I'm way behind my bad decisions. I'm going to do that some more of those.
Oh yeah, well, I'll let you load my jacket. I'll load my jacket to you.
Thank you so much for the time, Stacy. I appreciate it.
Nice to talk to you. Have a great day.